good evening, and hello to everyone who's tuning in to today. We are going to be having a very important conversation again, but let me quickly introduce our guest today, Mr. Nitin Shah. He has been a personal trainer for me as well, and my exposure to mental health and how to help someone has, especially in terms of getting having goals and how to be on top of them and to be able to make some sustainable changes for your life. These are areas that I have been heavily influenced by Nitin. He's also a friend, and I would like Nitin to take a moment to obviously introduce himself and his organization. Quickly, I'll also talk about the Connect Hut. We are a mental health organization, essentially a social enterprise, working to make mental health simple and accessible to everyone. Uh, uh, our main priorities lie in providing trainings that will help people get the vocabulary, not the jargon, but the vocabulary to understand what mental health is in their own life and how they may be able to impact and instead of being a victim of their own mental health, be able to see, get insights, and apply actions that can help them towards if they are in crisis, so out of crisis, and from there on to also fulfilling their life goals. With that in mind, we also offer, other than trainings, we especially work in the space of suicide prevention, where a lot of our trainings are focused on helping people understand what suicide is, what are the warning signs, and how to help people who may be going through these difficult times and how to be there for them in various capacities, right? We are able to train suicide gatekeepers to even people who are caregivers or mental health professionals to how to be able to support and help someone going through such, even in a professional setting. So anyone who is interested in knowing more, please do look up the Connect Hut. I have, like I said, the one and only Nitin Shah. So Nitin, please go ahead and introduce yourself and your organization too.
So I think Sachin has given a brief introduction about me. That's a good starting point. So just a couple of things that I can add is that primarily we offer skill building programs for psychologists and coaches. These are comprehensive training programs which range in around 6 months to 1.5 years, including mentorship, supervision, and everything else that comes between that. So, if you are a coach, a psychologist who is looking at developing advanced practitioner skills, and you're looking for not just a training program, but something that will help you actually incorporate the skills in your life and be able to practice it with your clients, then the courses that we offer are right for you. Um, as an extension of that, we also have an IHR Support Foundation, which is an NGO which works in the space of creating awareness about mental health and mental illness. We work with different NGOs to help their staff get trained in developing advanced skills so that they can provide first aid and mental health support to their beneficiaries. That's the long and short of what we do. If you are a psychologist and or a psychology student who's genuinely sincere about developing advanced practitioner skills, then you should look out for iChars and check out whatever courses we are offering. And Sachin, thank you for having me here today. It's an interesting topic that you've picked up. Let's see where this conversation goes.
I'm not the one to go for life altering messages just yet. I do feel there are some, and Nitin, I was even before we started this, like I don't think people will tend to believe that we don't actually even plan our conversations at all. We think about topics that may have inspired or clicked with us at some point of time, and that's how the topic of porn addiction kind of came into my scope of work. So I have been doing a lot of mental health trainings where, not necessarily mental health first aid, but we have been doing a lot of trainings, especially with seafarers and high stress environments. And one of the very common thing that kind of came up was relationship issues, right? Like that being a major uh, point of stress And my colleague Samriddhi was kind enough to get out some data. We are seeing almost 20% of couples sharing that they are experiencing some issues in their relationship. And there's a lot of data that was kind of going around in this space as well. Now, what I kind of and this is anecdotal because this is coming completely from the experience of having conversations. So the way I tend to organize my trainings is it's a facilitation, and we try to explore mental health and the challenges with regards to coping mechanisms and different things that kind of happen, and it's a conversation that me and the participants have. And once or twice the topic of porn had come up, and at first, like, usually you get awkward about these conversations. But it was an important conversation nonetheless. I felt it was coming up because I could see a lot of emotions behind it when I'm having those conversations with the client. And more often than not, I felt a sense of defensiveness coming in. I realized that when I had this conversation, especially in a group where there were also women, I saw a strong reaction from their side too. And again, I know this is a very generalized way of talking. However, I'm trying to bring out the highlights of these sessions and what different gender, what I observed from my point of view. And what I sensed was a lot of animosity kind of coming up when this topic came up. And upon exploration about usage and how things are, and this is where we did a bit more research, because I was seeing like the women folk being, yes, it is the scourge of the earth, and kind of a thing coming up, and men kind of just laughing it off and not making a big deal out of it. When we dealt in this deeper, some more information started coming out. There was a sense of dependency that I started observing. There was a culture of watching porn. There's a very high normalization of porn that has happened, where it's almost like a daily activity. Just one of those things people do. And they are not even, putting much thought into it. It's just like I'm having chai. Someone is just thinking of it in that way. But they are allocating some time in this. I also sensed a lot of fights and animosity kind of coming in between couples because of this topic as well, where when I brought it up with the women folk, it was like, is this a problem in the relationship? Yes. It was an unequivocal yes. This is a problem in my relationship. And I'm not talking about a particular age bracket. This was across the board. So all of this was very new piece of information, and it was hitting me hard. I was like, whoa, it almost felt like I had kind of reached the underbelly of our cultural visuals that we have, what we perceive as our culture. I almost felt like I'd reached the underbelly of it, where I'm touching some very raw nerves and a lot of emotions were coming up. And in these conversations when I was having, the conversation went like, okay, what's happening? What's the conversation like? No, my husband watches this. I tell him, don't watch it. I don't like it. When you do that, I feel that you think I'm not attractive enough. And, these kind of conversations and coming up. And then on the other side, a very common answer you get is, hey, I'm not cheating on you. So what's the big deal? So this was a recurring theme that I got.
So,
yes.
So I'll give you a slightly different perspective from a one-to-one session point of view.
Go for it.
Right? So in one-to-one sessions, I have had multiple clients who, both men and women, with porn addiction.
Yeah. Okay.
In the one-to-one setup, they are a lot more comfortable talking about their addiction.
Right.
So obviously there is a difference in the way the framework and the setup will be when you are in a group. You're also skeptical about what will people think, what will people say. But when they are in a one-to-one setup, you will notice that sometimes the conversations change. So the same people who otherwise would have tried to normalize the idea of watching porn, in a one-to-one session, equally acknowledge that this is a problem. Right. And that was interesting. So, for example, I was working with this couple where this problem came up, that one of the issue was that my partner is engaging in watching porn. There are repercussions because of it, because there's an X amount of time being dedicated to it. There's also the fact that the intimacy that needs to be there with the partner is not there. So all of this. So while we were having this conversation with the two partners there,
Hmm.
the person who was addicted to porn normalized it.
Hmm.
Okay? But later on, when we were doing one-to-one session, the
Hmm.
person said, "I know this is a problem, and
Right.
I want to work with it. I want to address this."
Right.
But when we are having a joint session,
Hmm.
my conversation
The
will still
defenses
be
come up.
the way I have been, which is okay as long as they recognize that there's a problem and they're willing to seek help
But
for it.
Nitin, if I could ask on this, right? Because I think it would be helpful in here, because I do feel like a lot of addiction is not even diagnosed. It is not. I think a majority of the people with porn addiction are probably not even aware that they are addicted. And this is coming back to that conversation that we had about addiction in one of our previous calls, where if you have the resource, if you have access, and there is no restriction on it, and unless it is going really out of the way and affecting you, it's very hard for people to even realize that they are addicted and are using it, and in fact it is starting to have some negative impact on their life. uh,
So actually, so I'll put it a bit differently, right?
yes.
Again, so the reason when I gave you this example about the husband and the wife, and the husband saying something else to me
Mm,
during the one-to-one session
mm,
and something else in the joint session. So most people, when you speak to them on a one-to-one basis, if that porn addiction is coming in the way of their life where something is getting affected by it,
right.
they know it. Okay. They may not consider what is being affected important enough to address. That's a separate issue.
Fair.
Right? But the fact that I'm investing, again, with porn addiction, for example, the problem is not the act of masturbation.
Mm,
It's the problem with watching porn, because the amount of time that people dedicate to watch it
right.
is far more than the final activity that they're trying to achieve through that.
So could you over here help us identify, like, what are the signs that should be kind of concerned about, right? If I'm doing these things, then I am probably addicted to porn, like for me to, yeah, actually begin
Okay,
that
perfect.
conversation.
So first, if it's coming in the way of anything else that you need to do as a part of your day-to-day life. So I need to spend time with my partner, but instead of doing that, I'm taking out time for this. And I know me and my partner are having a conflict because of this. Instead of
Right. So, and when you're saying having time with your partner, that also
that also
includes
includes
sex.
sex, right? And not
Yes.
just partner. I need to. So let's say I need to complete my office project.
Hmm.
I'm on a deadline, but I'm taking out
Hmm.
time for this instead of completing the project.
Hmm.
I need to spend time with my children. So
Hmm.
any place where this is overpowering something which is more important for you in your life, and that people know, that indicator is
Right.
not too difficult to identify, right? That is the easiest way to realize that you are now going down a road that you should start
Hmm.
recovering from immediately, that you should start seeking help for immediately. The reason I am not going to the extent
Right.
of saying about addiction and so on, because by the time you have reached there,
Hmm.
there's a lot that has gone on in between. So many of you can actually catch it over here itself. If I'm giving time to this
Hmm.
instead of something else which is more important.
Right.
Second, most people, most, not all, but most people will later on tell you that we feel guilty.
Right. So in the previous example, just to kind of put out some examples there, right? Just so we can put a bow tie on it, and before we move on, we are essentially saying time to even sleep, that your sleep is getting affected. If plans that you have, any social plans that you may have with friends, family, anyone, and you may give yourself whatever reason for not going, but instead of the time that you now got from not meeting your, your friends, family, social interactions that you have, is any of that time being spent watching porn instead, right? And also, whether are you also using it as a stress coping mechanism, or is that something
So
that you
I
may
would
look at
come to
covering
it
later?
in a moment. Right.
Right,
But the
sorry, then
point
please
being
tell me.
that for now, you are investing more time in it than you know you should be. One, though when you're investing in it, you don't realize it. When you're watching it, then most people don't even realize how long it has gone by. But retrospectively, you do
Right,
realize. Right. So whenever that
right.
retrospective recognition comes, that is a short sign that start seeking help immediately.
Hmm.
Which then brings us to the next question. So if they recognize the problem, why are they not willing to acknowledge it in front of their partner? Because
Right,
then they feel that they end up giving a huge weapon to their partner in their fight, and right now they're not able to control their habit, right? So
right,
this feeling that one, I am doing something that I should not be doing. Second, I am
right.
not able to control it, and if I acknowledge this, then my partner has a weapon against me.
Right. So this is interesting. So instead of, so there is another aspect where the person may feel, because again, addiction, when we are talking about it, we are not talking about someone doing something because, because it's a choice every time. This is why when we are calling it an addiction, we have to understand the compulsion is to a point that it's a disorder now, right? And that is why we are talking, I mean, that the seriousness needs to be there. That, and if your partner, anyone is going through this, it would, if both of your goal is to have a much more long lasting, if loving, trusting relationship, is the partner able to talk to me about this, and do they consider me as a safe space for this, or are they gonna feel that they're gonna be attacked, or are they going that this is going to be used as a weapon, like Nitin mentioned? So as a partner, if you are actually trying to get the other person to stop this and want to help them, then yes, if this realization is coming up, then a very good thing would be to kind of help and provide a safe space, understand that this is not something that the person may be doing out of choice. And this is also something that I wanted to delve in a bit later, regarding why are we even talking about this as an addiction. And there was some very interesting conversation that I had with regards to this as well, that goes to adverse childhood experiences, sexual abuse, that a lot of people have kind of experienced. And so to kind of shed some light on this, and to see that addiction doesn't necessarily come from pleasure seeking behavior on repetition. Very often it is coming from a coping mechanism. It can be a trauma response kind of gone overboard. So there are a lot of things to kind of address, and with regards to the nuances that it has. But yes,
Correct.
Nitin, coming back to you.
So that's one part of the story. At the same time, so while we are saying that if you have a partner who's struggling with this addiction, and if they're coming to you, provide them with a safe space, you also as a partner needs to learn to set boundaries, because sometimes you will have
That,
people who have an addiction, and then they will use this addiction as a weapon against their partner, right? So you also have to be careful about that. So the general guidelines or recommendations that I give to people is, when your partner tells you about an addiction that they have, in this case porn addiction, acknowledge it, provide them with a safe space to talk about it, but also give them a guide, give them like a timeline that I want you to start seeking help immediately. So it can't be that I will
there
deal with
needs
this
to
on
be,
my own, right? I only want you to listen to
right,
me. I'm not going to seek help, but if you later on complain, then I will tell you, तुमको तो पता है that I have an addiction. Then if you have an addiction, please also
exactly.
seek help.
This is such a valuable point. This is such a valuable point, because this is also the other side of the spectrum, right? Because either there is a partner who is who is challenging you, and you just are both in constant fights, and there is a lack of safe space between each of you, and there is no help that is going to come out of it. But the other side of it, where you have an over compliant partner who doesn't say no, there is no boundaries, there are no timelines being put in, that I am a partner who needs respect, love and care from the other person as well. And it's not just my job to kind of babysit the person's disorder in a way, because this is a very important conversation that happens in the addiction circles as well, that addiction is not just the person issue, it's also how the people around the person could also unfortunately enable in this entire process. I know it sounds almost like we are victim blaming here, but looking at it very objectively, there is no blame or opinion kind of coming out here. It is, if I want to be a responsible person, if I want to be a responsible partner, then it is not one way or the other. It is about finding the middle ground in this. And that is the only way out,
which is
right?
very
But
true, and it's
yes,
important to keep this in mind, because you'll be surprised in how many cases it happens that people don't seek help because the partner is available to listen to them, and they also
mm,
then get a justification to continue with the behavior that they are continuing with. And I understand what Sachin spoke
because my
about with
partner is
respect to victim blaming. uh, if you really want to be objective, you have to see the objective side of from all angles, right? And it's important to recognize that this also
exactly.
happens at times. So one part of the story. um, Now, why does this happen, right? Why are people getting addicted to porn? You touched upon a part of it, that there could be certain past experiences, there could be certain traumas. Let's go step by step. Let's start with the most basic one. For many people, porn is, it's a senseless activity where you don't have to think, right? Many times it's also a way for you to numb
With high
yourself.
reward. Mm.
So
And when I said, sorry, high reward, I meant from a
correct, a high
dopamine
reward from a
perspective.
dopamine perspective. But it's, well, all you're doing is basically switching on something, watching something, and it's creating an effect in your brain. A lot of people start using porn also as a way to cope up with the stresses that are happening in their life. It's almost like
Right.
there's a lot of frustration, there's a lot of anger, I don't know what to do. Once I had watched porn while I was in this state. After release, I felt comfortable, so I get into the act. Now the idea is I get into the act to get relief, but the before I reach the act, I've invested 2 hours in watching porn, which the purpose was something else. But that watching of porn
Right.
itself becomes a numbing experience. So that's one part of the story. Um, Second, for some people, it also becomes a reward, right? That
Right. Could
so
you
there are
elaborate?
some people who will tell you today my day was really bad, and
Mm.
therefore I indulged in watching porn. And then there are certain,
Mm.
and the same people at times would later on tell you today my day was so good, I was so productive that I thought I should
Mm.
reward myself.
Celebrated. Right. And this is such a common thing. I feel you hear, take any addiction for that matter. I think this is what we tend to hear with alcohol addiction, drug addiction, where any addiction is kind of involved. Very often there is a lie that we start saying to ourselves, where a sense of reward system, like for example alcohol. Why do you drink alcohol? Oh, because it helps me sleep, or it makes me get my emotions out, or I tell the truth afterwards and I'm able to be myself fully. There are these things that we kind of come up with, and there's almost like an archetypical pattern you will start seeing in these things. And similarly for porn, I've heard people say that, oh, it helps me sleep afterwards, or it helps me relax after a very stressful day, or things like that, as you
So
were
there
saying. Yes.
is many a times boredom,
Hmm.
then there is exhaustion, there is reward, and after all of this, there is guilt. That guilt causes
Yes.
more
And
exhaustion,
now you got a perfect loop.
and then
And you
you've
got
got
your
your
loop.
loop,
Yep, go on,
right?
please.
Um,
Yeah.
Now, why is this need for reward? Why is this exhaustion?
Sorry, just to kind of complete, why did we call it the loop? Because now what we are looking at is habit formation, right? Because as soon as it developed, that a loop got completed, that means high stress means I have to use this as a coping mechanism. But the moment I use this, if that activity stresses me out, if the knowledge of that activity stresses me out, adding to my stress, relief, stress, relief. So this is where that entire loop is getting completed, and the person unfortunately gets into a place where they may get
And
addicted to the whole thing. Yes, please.
it's this loop that actually sustains the entire behavior, right?
Right.
Now, so why are people seeking these pleasures, or why are they feeling so exhausted? So one can obviously be that their current environment is very exhaustive. For some reason, the
Hmm.
current environment is very stressful. But even if the current environment is stressful, not everyone who's stressed is going to get involved with porn. Right? Even if they get
Right.
involved with addiction, there will be other addictions they may get into, but it may not necessarily be porn. So there's some time in the past where there has been an association where watching
Hmm.
porn has provided them with a feeling of relief. And that association building has happened so strongly that today, every time they experience this stress, they experience
Hmm.
this discomfort, their mind jumps to,
Hmm.
all right, so this is the next thing that I can do. Now, this is to
Right.
be true for almost all kinds of addiction. There is a strong association that has been built where they experienced a relief in a circumstances which
Hmm.
they need to cope up with in future.
Right.
Second, there could be deeper past experiences which have contributed to creating a situation where even a small stressor can really stress them out. I think we had spoken about this
Hmm.
earlier when we were talking about addiction, that if our life was like a bucket, in that bucket, if there was
Hmm.
some amount of stress, right, you will
Hmm.
probably be able to cope up with it. One small
Yeah.
teaspoon of water of stress will not really bother you so much. But if the bucket was already
Hmm.
filled with water, then one small
Hmm.
spoon of water can still cause a spillover. So this can happen with
Yeah.
certain people, where they may also be past experiences, which may be recurring experiences that have led to that stress. There could also be past traumatic experiences which have led to something like this, right? Um, for some people, this is also a power game where the kind of porn that they watch makes them feel powerful because someone is being treated in a particular way in that porn or in that video that they're
Hmm.
watching, right? Um,
So would this power game be something to do with, let's say, sense of control?
it can be with sense of control. It could simply be that in my life, I feel that I am not able to assert myself. So this is an
Hmm.
overcompensation where I see someone else asserting or humiliating
Hmm.
someone else in the act of sex. Right?
Hmm.
So now that need to assert yourself to this extent, and the fact that I'm not able to
Hmm.
assert myself to the extent I need to assert myself in my day-to-day life, both would generally come from certain
Right.
experiences that are there in the past. And like we
Hmm.
spoke in the porn,
Hmm.
in the addiction video, there's obviously a chemical imbalance that's also there. There are some people who are more prone to addiction than probably other people would be. Right? But there
Right.
will be certain mitigating factors, certain triggering factors that have all come together for
Right.
this to build up the way it has built up.
Hmm. Right. And this is where, like, when we are talking about how it can manifest itself in past, right, this is where I was thinking about the data that we have regarding, let's say, sexual abuse, because amongst adverse childhood experiences that anyone can go through, one of the most common such experience is sexual abuse. And the data currently tells us that almost 60% of children get sexually abused, right? Now, what does that mean when we are talking about sexual abuse? Because when I'm having this conversation with men, I also let them know that amongst children, the ones who get sexually abused more often, and at least statistically, is seen to be boys. And when we have that conversation one on one, the generalized answers that we come out with is yes, girls, we tend to keep them at home when they're kids, we want to kind of smother them. And the boys, the kind of left into the elements a bit more. They are sent out into groups and playing and all of that. And unfortunately, it's through these experiences where young boys, especially, may be subjected to higher risk of sexual abuse. But then in, we are not just talking about molestation or bad touch or any such thing. One question that had a very high impact when I asked was, if imagine any child were to be shown porn. And this is why I feel like very often it's not about you have to even explain mental health to people, right? Because I have this conversation and I share with them, what happens if a child is shown porn, let's say at 7 years of age, 5 years of age, and the person who shows it to them is maybe usually an older uncle, or not uncle, maybe your society where you're living, the older friends or someone over there, and what they're showing you is, look at this cool stuff. So as a child, if the child is shown, let's say, hardcore porn, would you call that sexual abuse? And the answer every time, 100% from men I get is, yes, it is sexual abuse. And then when I ask them, when was the first time that you watched porn? It's pin drop silence. Because this is, I feel like very often the first time many men are even considering this, that, oh, you know what? Actually, that's what happened with me. That it was so and so person who made me watch porn, telling me that this is what you have to go on doing. This is fun. This is what sex is, and you need to learn this. Have a look. You shouldn't be shy or whatnot. And suddenly, you will have a group of friends just trying to watch porn, growing up together, whatever opportunity they get. So there is this whole drama around the whole thing, but they have never understood that what happened just now with them. Yes, sure, the person may not have intended to do that the intention wasn't there to abuse. But when the question came out straight up, if a child is shown this, would you call that an abuse of the child? Yes. Then the question is, if you saw porn for the first time, and for a lot of millennials and growing up, and I think for anyone who were present at 90s and 2000, when internet and the whole thing kind of got revolutionized, this access, what did that do to them? How did that impact them? And what sort of association did they make with the media? And unfortunately, so when I asked them, like, okay, if this is what happened, if you got introduced and you were told it's good and you started watching it every day, you also associated masturbation with it, and this continued, tell me, when I grow up, what would be my association with porn? And they themselves answered, Sachin, I think it would get normalized, right? I think we would start thinking it's a good thing then, right? So now this is the first question. You kind of know that if there is a part of you saying that, hey, this is cool, this is chill, and it's fun, there is a part in you that will now question that. Probably it's not, right? And what if this is my association? What would that, if normalization, if porn gets normalized, what would that mean? Sorry, my dog is trying to get on top of that.
So I think that's actually interesting in a sense that,
Yes.
Remember I said that people feel guilty about watching porn? What they feel guilty about is actually not watching porn, but the amount of time they've invested on watching porn. Right? And
Right.
now, with the conversation that we are having, now that you've brought out this particular aspect, that when you ask those people, would it be an abuse? And they say yes, and they're talking normalizing it. Now that conversation shifts from me investing so much of time on watching porn was a problem to me watching porn as a problem.
Exactly. This reframing, I feel, I can see the reactions, right? When I ask this question, and suddenly there's like, whoa, what happened right now? Because my whole understanding till now was like, oh, watching porn is actually okay. Because I was kind of enjoying it. Some days I kind of overdid it, and it's not a big deal, but slowly I don't realize it. But this this is happening more and more regularly, and slowly it has become a habit because I have managed to allocate some personal me time to this activity. and and there you go. Now we are on the foothills of the mount addiction, right? So when we had this conversation and the question turned into, is porn good in the first place? Is it okay to watch porn? And like straight away questioning it, and without it feeling like, oh, is this a propaganda by the government trying to stop people watching porn? That's not at all what we are talking about. We are trying to have a very objective, logical conversation. If this is what would happen if you watched porn and got normalized to you, first off, would you call it a sexual abuse that happened? If it was abuse, then that's a trauma. If it's trauma, there is a response that has come out of it. There is a belief that has come out of it. There are feelings that have now, emotions that have got attached to it. And there is a recurring habit that is coming out, like you mentioned earlier about coping mechanism. We may give ourselves whatever excuse, but we fail to see these are just excuses we are giving for an underlying condition, right? Which we are not ready to even address, or we haven't really reached there. So what would yes, I wanted to hear your thoughts on this kind of thing. And I've been trying to get people to have that conversation, the next step, right? Because then if you have now seen this, what should we try and do? How would you want to assess where you may be, if we are able to at least draw a mental scale? I'm not trying to give them like a test or anything like that. It's a conversation we are having, but somewhere to kind of help them figure out what sort of a scale I may be able to see, and how to prioritize getting help, what would help look like, and who could be the right people. Like, first off, is there even help available for such a thing? Is it going to be someone laughing at me if I go to a psychologist? Would they laugh me out of the place and tell me like, oh, you need to get a life? And these other fears that a lot of people have. I think it would be really helpful if you could put some light on that.
So let's break this down, right? First, once people have that recognition that it's not just about the amount of time I'm investing in it, but also probably how frequently I'm watching it, even if I'm watching it for a lesser duration. Right?
Right.
That itself is a good starting point. Then comes the next step, that once I know that I should not be watching it, right? And again, this is not to say that watching porn is good or bad. If it's not affecting any other area of your life and every other area of your life is going on smoothly and you are indulging in.
But Nathan, what? I will argue here. I think because we have, I feel like from mental health professionals' perspective, there is also this thing that we try to toe the line between, oh, we can't make anything evil or bad or anything like that. We have to kind of balance out the communication that kind of goes out. So obviously, we are not trying to say that porn is evil or anything, but I do feel that there are strong arguments to be made, especially if not in terms of evil, but in terms of how quickly, because sex is such a major motivation point in a human being's life. I think we are going to I feel very often we may misrepresent the just how strong, powerful a need, and just how strong a pull a person may have, and how quickly they may step down that line.
Here's the thing, right, Sachin? Circumstances for people are different. So someone who's in a relationship,
Right.
has a partner, is indulging in watching porn instead of being with their partner. That is a problem. Right? Someone who's single.
Right.
Now, if they are watching porn in a calibrated manner, let's put it this way, right? Then it may be serving a purpose for them right now. When it reaches a place where it starts coming in the way of their day-to-day life, right? So the point is, I'm not really trying to balance it out over here. What I'm saying is, I understand there are different circumstances. There can be people who can be.
But shall we then say, I know we shouldn't be putting what's ideal porn rate, but something to kind of help people understand, because as soon as there is this vague idea that it can be calibrated and moderated, what does that even mean? right? And you have mentioned, yes, it's about whether it is going overboard, but maybe in a simple example way, maybe we could just
Okay,
bring it
so
out a
if I
bit
have to
more.
give you a simple example, the answer would be if it's taking you more time to watch porn than to masturbate.
Brilliant. You may need to put this as a quote out there, right? So if it is taking you more time to watch porn than to even masturbate, if the act of it is involving a lot of pre-activity, which is just this, or there are terms like edging, where the person may try to stop themselves from climaxing, and this thing kind of turns into a very addictive process very quickly as well. And apparently it's now getting cult status as well. It's being projected as a lifestyle. I've tried to kind of explore on this topic a bit more, and it's interesting, the conversations that are kind of going out there. It's not necessarily being seen as something to kind of work with, but it's more often seen as a lifestyle choice that people are having now. And I'm kind of confused as to what would you say as a
See,
mental health
again, so
professional to that.
okay, I have, so not even as a mental health professional, as an individual, I have a very simple philosophy that
Right.
everyone has a right to live their life the way they want to live their life, as long as
Perfect.
it's not negatively affecting the
Perfect.
lives of other people. Right?
Hmm.
Now, the problem with any kind of addiction,
It's that it's only a victimless crime, but the one
it's actually
victim is
not a
they
victimless
themselves as
crime,
well,
which
right?
is the problem. When
Hmm.
anyone who's
Exactly.
addicted to an alcohol or a porn, like in the case of relationship, the relationship is suffering, right? To
Hmm.
say that it's a victimless crime is actually not giving due credit to the people who are living with those people who have addiction. So while I understand that we have to be very careful about ensuring that we don't end up blaming the victim, but also
Of
recognize
course.
there are different types of victims in a situation. Right? So this conversation where we say that the person who is addicted is the only victim, there are no other victims, it's actually not right. If a relationship is going for a toss
Exactly.
because someone is affected by porn, then their partner is also getting affected by it. Right? So there
Right.
is the other victim as well.
Hmm.
The person who is addicted to porn, you may still say that, oh, all right, because they are addicted, we need to support them. What happens to the
Hmm.
other one who is also suffering because of this? Right?
Right.
So I'm really sorry, this is not a victimless crime. There are victims involved.
But
Um, in some cases, multiple victims. In some cases, only one victim. In rare cases, there is a possibility where the person is so alone that it doesn't
hmm.
influence anyone else. But in that case, they will not be
Hmm.
seeking help, and no one will be coming and complaining to you that they are doing this. So you and I might not even know about someone who has a problem like this, right? So,
Right.
which is one. Um, Second, having said that, but like I said, as long as it's not affecting someone else, you have a life. If you're able to balance it, you have a freedom to do what you wish to do. The moment it starts influencing someone else negatively,
Hmm.
right? Then it's important to start relooking at what your priorities are. That's also true for porn addiction. Um, so to answer your question, is it okay for people to watch porn? Like I said, their choice. But please ensure two things. If it's taking longer than the amount of time it takes for you to masturbate, okay, so I'll give you 2x time.
2x. You're being very kind, it
Yeah.
sounds like
No,
to
because
me.
the reason I said
But
2x is because someone may say that, all right, I have to find the video first and then I have to start. So वो video ढूंढने में थोड़ा time तो लगेगा ना. So चलो.
it needs to be
Yeah. So I'm
inspiring
giving you
enough.
a realistic reference point.
All right. Now, in this, just to kind of, I wanted to kind of circle back onto that victimless part, but you know what, from your own perspective, right? If for the person who is addicted to porn, I also wanted to bring out a perspective, because this is also a very special conversation I had. This was something I had, let's say, when I was not married. I was around 35, and people were telling me to get married. And some of the men who kind of I may have looked up to, and who have walked that path before me. When they came up to me and they're like, Sachin, get married soon. I was like, okay, why are you talking like my mother? And the answer, very weirdly, and this was, I mean, obviously it's very well intended and the person is trying to help me. And the answer was, Sachin, post 35, a man's sexual energy or man's sexual system starts downgrading, or it just starts going down. It's downhill. And a woman's sexual energy and system start working more. And there is going to be this gap that's going to start coming up. So you better get married soon, because otherwise it's going to be all, a big, big problem after. And this had stuck with me. I mean, I found it extremely hilarious that happened, because I do feel like that's not at all scientific. I do feel like that's not, it's not even anecdotal. But I feel, and this is something I then start bringing up in my trainings, I started asking this to men. What do you think about this? After 35, men's sexual system goes down and women's sexual system goes up. You would be surprised. I mean, at least I was. I had a lot of men saying, yes, that's true. That is exactly what happens. Right? And so imagine, then this is what I kind of did, kind of asked them, like, okay, because this is where my Nanaji will come into the picture. Because my question to them was, well, guys, the fact is my Nanaji's system was working even when he was 60. And why am I saying that? Because he had kids who were younger than his kids. Right? They were not, I don't think my Nanaji was talking about how Naniji has become older now. I don't think he was talking about that she's become fat. I don't think he was talking about how after pregnancy, her body doesn't feel the same way or whatnot. These tropes which get thrown around so much that there is an entire plastic surgery field that has sprung out of this. And I find it so tragic, because I'm like, my Naniji found them, I guess, each other very attractive, even up to whatever age. And then my question to them was like, is this true with you guys? And they are like, yes, I have an uncle who's younger than me. So I'm like, great. Now my question is, what was the difference between what happened at Nanaji's times and today? Why are men silently believing, and there is no theory published out there, there's no research out there, but why are men, there is this myth around men believing that this is what is happening? And I have some really cool conclusions that kind of came out of it. But what are your thoughts on this?
So, Sachin, a lot of this, at least from a client session point of view, right? I've come across a lot of people who, in that 35 plus age group, start feeling as if the pressure that they have on them about life is far greater today than they had earlier. So 35 may not necessarily be the cutoff mark, but you can understand the range, right? And that pressure that they have on them also influences the sex drive to some extent. For some people, it may increase the sex drive, by the way, right? But for a lot of,
so it's how you are treating the sexual outlet, how you're treating sex.
And for many people, but it also becomes like I have to perform here, I have to perform here, I have to perform here. I don't want to perform here. Right? As opposed.
And this all, is it happening unconsciously, or there is some level of conscious awareness, but the person is not able to find enough resources to kind
it's generally not conscious awareness. But it's not that they are realizing that it's because of pressure. Later on in a therapy session or something, when they are working, they may recognize this. And then when they are able to cope with the pressure better, the other thing starts improving also. So therefore, then they are retrospectively able to make a connection that, you know what, I've realized that with this is also changed. But most people consciously are not aware of the fact that this additional pressure that they're experiencing is also impacting their sexual drive, right? And again, so this is the thing, right? It's impacting their sex drive to be with their partner, but it's not impacting the desire to watch porn.
There you go. Bingo. Right. This is
Correct.
something that
So
is coming up.
because with the partner, the idea is I have to perform. With watching
Mhm.
a porn, it is a numbing experience.
It is for me. It is this is happening for me, and in the other activity there is energy that I have to put in, I have to work, and I have to please
Correct.
the
The
other
idea is that
person. So I
there's
have another cost.
also that when I'm involved, that when I'm indulging in sex, one, whether I'm able to pleasure the partner or not, and second, if I'm not able to pleasure the partner, then do I feel inadequate? When I feel
Mhm.
inadequate, there's already a lot of pressure that I have on me. Now this is an additional pressure.
And how do I deal with it? And how do I deal with those pressures and stress when I get stressed?
Correct.
Let me watch porn.
So that's one of the reasons that I've seen why
Mm,
the intimacy with the partner goes down, and yet the desire to
mm,
watch porn increases.
mm. And this is where that very the question, right? And this is where if I'm addressing the men folk there, I'm like, listen, if you have had this conversation, if your partner has said this, and I'm again, yes, we know women can be addicted to porn as well and all of that, so just consider this as whoever it is, and if your partner has mentioned this to you, hey, when you watch this, I don't like it, then it's not just the act of watching porn that they're talking about. They're not talking about that they are disgusted by that act so much as, I mean, sure, there could be such scenarios too, but it's more about what you watching porn that time, what you're not doing, the intimacy that is lacking because of it, how you behave. Uh, if you have access to porn, then how do you treat me, right? And if your needs are being met, then what about my needs? Because when we had this conversation, right, with the men as well, I asked them what was the one difference, what was the thing that was different from when Nanaji was alive and when we are here. And one of the major differences is there was no porn, right? And using that similar example that we used earlier, if your introduction to porn happened at a very young age, you started watching people that are so young in the porn as well, you're watching people who are barely 20, 18, or whatever, but that's what you keep on watching, that's what you have associated sexual pleasure with, and you're doing the same thing even as a 50-year-old, where now uh, I don't know if there is something known as sexual maturity, where even your interest with your age corresponds to the people of your age, where I'm able to find my wife attractive who's my age, rather than do I only find 18-year-olds or 20-year-olds attractive. Anyone above 30, I don't find them attractive anymore. Why is this my sense of attraction only limited to age bracket rather than a human being? And growing with them with in terms of the attraction as well, when my wife is 50-year-old, I'm 50, to be able to find her attractive as a 50-year-old. It's not that she's not attractive, it's my definition of attractiveness has gotten stuck because of porn very often, at a particular age, in a particular act, in a particular, earlier you mentioned about it could be about harming others or any such things as well. It's about my sense of attraction and sexuality or enjoyment of sex meets this ideal sexual figure is around this age bracket, this activity, or things like that. Would you say
So
that's
see, when you start watching
easy
something, you obviously
like that?
start getting influenced by it, right? You start getting impacted by it.
Hmm.
So when you're watching porn, you have the choice. What kind of porn you want to watch? What is the age group of people that you are looking at? Um, all of that will
Right.
have an impact on how you are experiencing your life, how you are perceiving people around you, right? So yes, what
Hmm.
you're saying is right. It does impact a lot of people. That's also the reason why what you mentioned earlier, that I am no longer feeling attracted towards my partner, but I'm feeling attracted towards younger people, because if while you're watching porn you're looking at younger people, then obviously the attraction is towards those younger people, right? So
Right. Your chords are being met, like you are deriving sexual pleasure, and at the same time, the association is young, skinny, and whatever color, and all of these things we are feeding into it. And this is where that I feel like that dangers of porn without really realizing what
And the
all harms it is
repetition
causing
only
is
makes
not
it
being taught.
stronger.
And the repetition
Right?
only
See,
makes it
remember
stronger. Right.
when we began this conversation, we spoke about the fact that there is generally a strong association with either relief or pleasure.
Or release, what should we say?
Relief, release, or pleasure. Right? The more you do the act, which means the more you watch porn, the repetition makes the association stronger.
Right.
So the next time when you are seeking relief or you're seeking pleasure, as the case may be, depending upon what the association is, your mind will first look out for this as a method.
Right.
Right? So yes, what you're mentioning is true that there are these unspoken dangers which we don't even pay attention to, which we don't even realize. And a part of this does happen because it's being normalized in the fact that all right, it's okay to uh, watch porn if I'm doing it for myself. But for certain people, this is like my time. Now I don't know how to what to say after.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there, and I hope we are able to see how this is affecting our sexual relationship. When we are able to see that, even me, if I hug my partner, if we share that moment of intimacy, there is oxytocin being released, the love hormone in a way, and this is so therapeutic in itself. And having a loving sexual relationship with the same partner, how much more therapeutic can that itself be? And this I'm talking about with regards to mental health itself, where a lot of us are not able to realize how our mental health also plays a part with our sexual health, with our spiritual health, with our emotional health. So all of these systems are kind of connected to each other. One cannot be without, it doesn't just operate in its own silos. And being conscious about each of these aspects of our life when we are living our life, all of us have the right to self-determination. You live your life to the rules, that to the tunes that you want to dance to, and to the rules that you want to adhere to. However, making sure that you're doing it consciously and being aware of that, not taking anything lightly, especially whatever you are consuming, the consumption, not necessarily food wise, but I do feel that's an area that people are struggling with as well. But food, data, information, anything that you are consuming, and I think Indian philosophy may, any data that we kind of gather, ears, nose, skin, eyes, is all considered to be consumption. So being very conscious about the data, that whatever it is that we are consuming, what is our idea formation around those things that we are consuming, what are we calling good and bad, and being able to then, especially if we are having a partner, if you're looking to not just be a lone wolf, but being wanting to engage in these bigger games, more people involved. I'm part of the family, I'm part of a community, I'm part of the society, and wanting to be engaged at these levels, we need to be very, very mindful about what simple things that we do even in our me time. Because what happens in our own individualistic circle is there will be impact at relationship level, at community level, and at society level as well.
So before we end, Sachin, remember you had asked, is help available for this, and what are the key objections towards it, right? So one, for those who are involved in porn, I don't have time for therapy cannot be an objection, because the amount of time that you will invest in going for therapy, you will save by not watching porn, right? So that can't be a reason. That shouldn't be a reason. Let me put it this way.
Right, but who do you think should, let's say, we are putting it out there that you can get in touch with IHRs, we can get in touch with Visit MHP, that's part of IHR's counselors available out there, who could also possibly help you in these things. So who do you expect should, what would be your advice, or what would be a recommendation that you would tell people? What should give them a clue that, yes, I should begin a conversation on this? How do I approach someone? How do I reach out to a counselor? How do I know if this person do all counselors entertain such a thing, or do I need to find specific counselors who may be, let's say, experts in it? And how do I navigate that? How do I go about it?
Okay. So is help available? The answer is yes, help is available.
Yes.
Second, who are the right people? So yes, there are certain people who are more comfortable working with this. There may be certain people who may not be comfortable working with this. It may be a good idea to reach out to a practitioner who is of the same sex as you.
Okay.
Right? Also, the reason is because it is to protect the practitioners as well. Sometimes there are people who engage in conversations with practitioners not because they're addicted to porn, but they're addicted to the idea of talking about it
with someone. Yeah.
to someone who's of the opposite sex. So when you're reaching out for help to ensure that your practitioner is comfortable working with you, ideally it's a good idea to reach out to someone who's of the same sex.
Okay.
Unless obviously
of the sex that you are not particularly inclined towards, would that be a fair assumption? What if it's someone from the LGBTQ community who may
even if people are from the LGBTQ community, so the sense of safety that therapists experience at times is more based on whether the person that you're talking to is of the same gender or the other gender. It may not necessarily be about their sexual orientation.
Okay.
Right? And also because that is the place which is tricky to recognize. When someone gives you a call and tells you that I am, so let's say there's a man reaching out to a female therapist saying that I am gay, and then talking about all the things that they're talking about in a very explicit manner.
Right, with graphic content.
With graphic details. It may still be uncomfortable for that therapist, especially if she's straight.
Right.
Actually, even if they're not straight. So it may be a good idea to first reach out to a therapist who's of the same sex. And then during the conversation, if you're genuinely seeking help, the therapist will help you understand whether they are comfortable working with you, or they will guide you to someone else who will be the right person to work with you. Right. So when I'm saying this, I'm not saying that you necessarily need to work with a therapist who's of the same sex. I'm saying just to keep it safe for both you and for the other person, first reach out to a person who's of the same sex, have that initial conversation, and then during that conversation, the two of you can decide what's the best way to proceed from here. Porn addiction is different from sexual dysfunction. So the kind of people that you will reach out to may vary. Therefore, be very clear about the help that you are seeking. Right?
So you need to be able to define what is the help you are needing, so that if the mental health professional feels that they may not be the right person, they'll be able to guide you that better.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think that's the mental health professional's job. In the sense that if you're reaching out to me and if you're not sure what if you're not able to define your problem clearly, right, then it's my job to help you define that problem clearly. So if you're not able to define the problem clearly, that's okay. You can go and visit a practitioner. The practitioner should ideally be able to help you define that problem clearly. And then you and the practitioner can together decide what's the best way to proceed from here. There are a lot of people that you will find who do specialize in helping you work with porn addiction. So it may make sense to reach out to them because this is an area that they are already working with, which means they're also comfortable working in this area, as opposed to reaching out to another therapist who may or may not be comfortable.
And is there a Google search, or how does someone find such professionals? Because there are so many hacks as well, right? Because
most
space.
Correct. So what happens is this, right? So when you're going to search for practitioners, how would you search for them? Generally, you will be searching for them either over Google, or there would be certain marketplaces of practitioners that you will reach out to. For example, it can be Practo, it can be Visit MHP, it can be multiple other such platforms. We are about to launch a new one called Meet Goals very soon.
Oh, wonderful.
Right? Now, on each of these platforms, there will be people who will mention the specialization as working with addictions, working with porn addiction. Example, in Meet Goals, one of the things that we are restricting is people can only select 5 categories as the key clientele that they work with. Right? Because we want you to prioritize, even as a practitioner, what are the, so it's easier for clients to recognize that you're not just ticking all the boxes because you're thinking it's a sare tick ke to sare clients can come to me.
वही तो
We
आए.
want you to select something that you're most comfortable working with. Right? But almost all portals will have that option. Given that porn addiction is something that not everyone is comfortable with, uh, people will not select this option unless they are comfortable to work with this. So
Right.
that probably is the best way to reach out to those clients. And then cost obviously becomes a factor. So you have to see that the cost works for you.
Perfect. So brilliant. Thank you so much, Nitin. So today we have kind of understood, I think in the conversation, some important things that kind of came up, included how porn addiction as part of addiction is again something to do with coping mechanisms, how it can be a loop that is coming out of the person's requirement to move away from stress and find this as a coping mechanism. And unfortunately, addiction can become a result. Obviously, we are simplifying this part. There could be also adverse childhood experiences associated with it. And when there is especially a high percentage of the population that is being sexually abused as children. So expecting that this can be a major issue amongst adults when they have grown up is not to be taken lightly, that this is a major challenge that not just India, I think world over, we have discovered that India is in terms of porn consumption, we are the third largest nation for porn consumption, is what my colleague found out. So there are some serious concerns that kind of come up, and it's not a very harmless thing either. Yes, we are saying that those who watch porn, please, that's your call. However, try not to also have this view that it is good or completely harmless, because through our discussions we kind of saw how it can be impacting your sexual life, your relationship, even at a much deeper level, even your own sense of sexual performance, identity, and all these things. So there are a lot of areas that we need to kind of consider. And guess what? The best thing is there is help available. And Nitin, yes, you would like to add something?
So just probably the only thing that I would say in the end is be mindful of what you're doing and also the impact of what you're doing.
Yes.
Be mindful of both of them. As long as you're mindful of the two and you're happy with the way your life is going, it's not influencing other people, so be it. But if you notice that there is a ripple effect that's taking place, either for you or for someone else, then maybe take a pause, look, think, and
Not
then
while
decide
watching
what you need
porn,
to
take
do.
a pause. He's not talking. But take a pause in terms of making a decision. I know that's a very bad joke, but my humor has to come in somewhere. Thank you, Nitin. It was absolutely fantastic having this conversation. Very candid. And I think those who have been watching and those who will watch in the future will find it to be extremely helpful. So until next time, really looking forward to our next conversation.
Same here, and now we need to have one conversation which will be related to therapists
Yes.
in terms of how they can work with addiction. We have
How,
spoken about addiction
how
and
about
different
this
kinds of
becomes our
addiction.
next conversation? Let's do it
Yes.
from that side, where we would love to hear more in terms of therapy aspects as well. And maybe this conversation can be more important for therapists out there who may have their own, not necessarily stigma, but apprehensions from helping out in this space. Because I do feel, if you are saying that you're not having clients because, well, you're not looking at issues that are so over encompassing people in the first place. Being open
True.
to issues that on ground are affecting people, learning, educating yourself, and unlearning some of these biases and finding different ways you can be of help, I think would set you up for a very bright future as well. I think that is the core need of India as well. So thank
True.
you again, Nitin. And with please do visit MHP as well. If you are looking to seek a counselor, you can also use the Connect Hut, where it's, especially if anyone is going through a crisis or looking for help during crisis times, our counselors are trained to handle such situations. So feel free to get in touch. I guess it's adios now. Take care.
Thank you. Bye bye. Good night. Take care.